So, if you've never heard of the cross education effect in muscle strengthening and would like to know how this effect could be beneficial for your stroke survivor in their home rehabilitation, then this video will definitely have lots of information for you that will be useful. Hi there, I'm Dr. Kenneth Monaghan. I'm a university lecturer and neuroplasticity expert and the author of Lights, Mirrors, Action, a guide for transforming the lives of caregivers and stroke survivors. I'm hugely passionate about trying to assist caregivers and stroke survivors to make their home an ideal place for them to carry out their physical rehabilitation. So, cross education. I suppose I'm surprised when I talk to people worldwide over the last 12 months that not that many people are familiar with the cross education effect. So, I suppose, as an example, if I went to the gym for 6 weeks, the next 6 weeks, and I only carried out strengthening exercises on my right hand side. Now, I never would do this in practice, but if I did, after 6 weeks, if I remeasured my limbs, they would be much, much stronger, as you'd imagine. But also, if I measured the other side, even though nothing has been done, that side could be up to 50% stronger, even though we haven't done anything. And that fact and that principle is quite extraordinary. And as you can imagine, it could have quite a benefit for stroke survivors who sometimes struggle to do activities on that affected side. Now, before we start, can I emphasize that from all of my research over the years, I feel that the cross education effect and the idea of strengthening just the good side or the non affected side of the body is not an absolute recommendation. I only suggest that this therapy is done for, periods of time, small pockets of time during the day. Pockets of maybe 20 to 30 minutes where the patient or the stroke survivor is using this therapy in an attempt to stimulate or excite the brain in a certain way so that when they then do other therapies that involve using the limb, they will get more ability out of those to create neuroplasticity in the brain. So the discussion of this is not an attempt to advise anybody to only use the non-affected side, but it is sensible, in my opinion, that a period of time, and I describe this in Lights, Mirrors, Actions in one of the programs, that a period of time and a session is done with this with the intentions of activating and exciting the brain. So, cross-education effect was first suggested and first discovered by Edward Wheeler Scripture who was a Yale Psychology Lab um, back in the 1890s. And a very simple experiment was carried out with two people where, training over a 9-10 day period took place with just one limb. And they found that the two people had improved the strength in their non-working limbs by 43 and 26% respectively. So this was the start of it. And the feeling is that the two models of why cross education effect is possible is that when we do activities in one limb, the electricity that goes to our brains, it also goes to both sides. So there's what they call a cross activation or a spillover effect that happens when we do activity in one limb. And it's felt that this has an ability to send more electricity to the affected side. So the benefits that you're getting, this up to 40-50% of an improvement, that benefit is an actual neural benefit. So the recruitment of fibers, the recruitment of muscle fibers is the potential that exists from doing this type of therapy. Second benefit that's been proposed is that there's a cognitive benefit. So when we think about actually doing activity on one side of the body, it's also stimulating those cognitive areas on the affected side, which makes it more likely that dormant pathways, areas that are not being used, will be stimulated to work. And both of these theories and both of these principles have been discussed, and they're discussed in chapter 16 of Lights, Mirrors, and Action. So why I like cross-education effect is that it's a therapy that can be done very cost effectively in your own home. All we need is a small piece of resistance exercise band, and we can use any of the doorways in our own home, and we can actually do strengthening exercises for the good side. And we can do them sitting or we can do them standing. So it's a suitable and an inexpensive, cost-effective exercise that can be done at home. And it's definitely, a neural adaptation that happens. So I feel that cross education effect is a bit like mirror therapy. It's a bit like sensory substitution that we've spent the last 12 years researching in our Neuroplasticity Research Group. All of these excite or stimulate the brain in a certain way that makes it more likely that new pathways will be formed when a stroke survivor tries to do ordinary activities of everyday life afterwards. So it's the sequence of therapy that seems to be important. And for me, it's introducing cross education effect for a small period of time each day is definitely worthwhile within a program. Now, caregivers, what's your role here? So your role is very much to educate and inform your stroke survivor about the existence of a therapy called cross education effect. It's to purchase a piece of resistance band, and it's to follow the instructions in Lights, Mirrors, Action, or some of the resources that go along with this book. You'll notice that in Lights, Mirrors, Actions, at the takeaway at the very end of each chapter, we have a little QR code, which when you scan it, it brings you to the extra resources, some videos that show you how to do these therapies. And just explain to your stroke survivor why these things work and how they potentially work, because knowing and understanding how things work makes it much more likely that our motivation is higher, and that much more likely that we'll get a positive result afterwards. So, as I've said, if you would like more resources or more information and more assistance about cross education effect or any areas of Lights, Mirrors, Actions, then please visit my website at www.lightsmirrorsaction.com, and there you'll find these extra resources, these worksheets, these extra videos. And I wish you the best of luck using cross education in your own home. Thank you very much for listening.